Thank you for joining us for our virtual Lunch and Learn presentation, The Cancer Fighters in Your Food, with Ironwood Registered Dietitian Kindra Peterson.
Thank you, Vansel, for the introduction. My name is Kindra. As Vansel mentioned, I'm one of the dietitians here at Ironwood Cancer and Research Centers. I'm going to talk to you today about the cancer fighters in your food, those compounds that have some good anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and just generally good health properties. Scientists estimate that about 40% of cancer cases could be prevented by reducing exposure to cancer risk factors. This includes compounds and factors associated with your diet, your weight, and being physically inactive. Nature does give us a treasure trove of health protectors in the forms of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, lentils, nuts, seeds, and all those other plant-based foods. And we know that plant foods do contain many kinds of edible cancer fighters: vitamins, minerals, fibers, antioxidants, and phytochemicals, which I'm going to focus on today. So what are phytochemicals? Phytochemicals are naturally occurring compounds. They are actually the compounds that give plant foods their color, their aroma, their flavor. They protect them from infection and from predators. When eaten, they work together to fend off cancers and other diseases, and they have the potential to stimulate our immune system, block substances we eat from becoming carcinogens. They reduce the kind of inflammation that makes cancer cells grow. They prevent damage to the DNA and help repair DNA. They reduce oxidative damage to cells that can spark cancer. They slow the growth rate of cancer cells. They trigger damaged cells to die before they can reproduce, thus slowing the spread or stopping the spread and metastasis and growth of cancerous cells. They block the development of new blood vessels that tumors need to be fed to grow, and they help regulate our hormones, which is really important in those hormone-sensitive cancers, some of the breast cancers, gynecologic cancers, and prostate cancers in men. Are phytochemicals the same as antioxidants? Short answer is no, but we do know that some phytochemicals do have antioxidant properties. Antioxidants themselves are substances in plant foods that prevent damage to cells from unstable molecules in the environment called free radicals. Eating foods that contain antioxidants wards off damaged free cells, the damage that free radicals cause. And if not kept in check, free radicals can lead to cell damage linked to chronic diseases, including cancers. Some phytochemicals, again, do act as antioxidants in the body, but they are not the same. Some nutrients like vitamin C, vitamin E, the mineral selenium seem to block free radicals directly, so they are considered antioxidants, but as we discussed, are also found in many foods that are high in phytochemicals. We know that phytochemicals work together to boost our health. There is no single phytochemical or food that can protect you from cancer or any other disease for that matter. But in laboratory studies, we are finding that those many individual minerals, vitamins, phytochemicals do demonstrate anti-cancer effects. And evidence suggests that it is these many compounds working together, not individually, in our overall diet that gives us the strongest protection from cancer. A busy chart here, but just to show you just some of the classifications of phytochemicals. They have identified over 1,000 of these compounds so far with benefits for health and disease prevention. And this is just a quick little slide to show you how many there are, how we've identified them, and their different classes that they fall into. So where do we get these in foods? What should we eat? What are the specific foods beyond just plant-based foods? We do know that all plant-based foods have these compounds in them, but what are some of the key cancer-fighting foods and key cancer-fighting compounds we find in foods? Apples provide dietary fiber, which is beneficial for our nutrition and health, as well as cancer prevention. But they also provide polyphenol compounds, one of those classifications, groups of phytochemicals that partner with our gut microbes to create an environment that may help reduce the risk of cancer. Specifically, apples provide flavonoids. And in that classification of flavonoids, in that flowchart I showed you, anthocyanins, which are in red apples, epicathasin and quercetin, and then triterpenoids. I'm going to get stumbled up on a lot of these. But most importantly, the important thing to find in all of that is those compounds provide some protective actions. They have been shown to slow the development of colon, lung, and breast cancer cells in several stages of cancer development. So when we talk about stages of cancer, it goes from stage 1 to stage 4. And we are finding these effects from those compounds in all those stages. There have actually been observational population studies that link apple intake with the lower risk of estrogen receptor negative forms of breast cancer. So that old adage, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, is really a founded, true statement. Looking at some of the berries, blueberries in particular, blackberries, raspberries, and strawberries, several studies have looked at blueberries. And when we're talking about antioxidant compounds in foods, blueberries are kind of the gold standard with regards to fruits. So we know that eating blueberries increases antioxidant activity in the blood, as well as showing a potential to prevent DNA damage. Along with reducing cancer risk, compounds in blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, and strawberries in particular has been shown to improve brain, eye, and heart health. So just on a side note, I've listed those phytochemical compounds in those berries, and you'll see flavonoids in a lot of these, and you'll see quercetin in particular in a lot of these. And I always like to point out quercetin is in a lot of red, blue, purpley foods, or red onions as well. And it has been shown to be a very strong anti-inflammatory compound, which is important in heart disease and arthritis, but also has some very strong anti-cancer properties to it. Some of the possible protective actions from blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries is it has been shown to decrease free radical damage to DNA that can lead to cancer, decrease the growth and stimulate self-destruction of mouth, colon, and prostate cancer cells particularly. And those were found in human tissue studies and human cancer studies. In animal studies, which we know doesn't always equate directly to human studies, but it's always a good start in where we can look at further studies in the humans. It decreases inflammatory cytokines, esophageal cancer, and precancer changes in the colon, decreases estrogen-induced breast cancer and DNA damage, increases self-destruction of lung, stomach, pancreatic, and breast cancer cells, and can decrease the formation of precancerous colon polyps and reduce the markers of inflammation. And when we're talking about colon cancer, we know that there is a strong inflammatory component, some inflammation with that cancer in particular. So if we can help with the inflammation, we can help with the overall disease. Broccoli and cruciferous vegetables. The link between cruciferous vegetables and cancer is one that is very well studied. We know that it can induce detoxification of carcinogens, limits the production of cancer-related hormones, and blocks carcinogens and prevents tumor growth. The cruciferous vegetables and broccoli are very high in carotenoids, beta carotene, especially in the green varieties of these. And they also have the indoles and the isothiocyanates. And those compounds have been shown to decrease inflammation linked to increased cancer risk. We see inflammation in a variety of cancers and in a majority of cancers. So anything we can do to help decrease the inflammation is going to just improve the cancer treatment as well. Inhibits enzymes that activate carcinogens and stimulate enzymes that deactivate carcinogens. It turns on the genes that suppress tumors and slows cancer cell growth and stimulates cancer cell self-destruction, as well as promoting cell communication that helps control abnormal cell growth. So again, all of those actions are going to help stop cancer cells from replicating and growing or forming. Coffee is one of those foods or compounds that there's a lot of studies, and it swings. You can, for every study that says one thing, you can probably find one that says another. We do see some studies that show coffee as a source of protective antioxidants, to others that suggest that coffee poses a cancer risk. However, research does show that drinking coffee in moderation reduces the risk of endometrial and liver cancers. When you hear concerns about coffee, it's usually around a compound called acrylamide, and it is in roasted coffee beans. But it's important to understand that there are no links that have been established between acrylamide in food and cancer risk in humans. We do know that acrylamide increases cancer risk for lab animals. However, it is at a vastly higher amount than people would get from drinking coffee. They are giving them the straight compound and they're giving it in what would be pounds and pounds and pounds and worth of coffee beans in a day. So it's not something that is very likely for human consumption. Some of the compounds in coffee: caffeine, deuterpenes, and phenolic acids. And those compounds have been shown to speed the carcinogens passage through the digestive tract. Coffee does have some laxative properties to it, and those compounds are part of that. And if we're speeding things through the GI tract, they're not sticking around long enough to be doing any damage. Also, they have been shown to influence cancer cell signaling to help regulate cell growth, reduce inflammation, and increase self-destruction of cancer cells. And coffee intake, again in moderation, 2 to 4 cups of coffee a day, has been shown to link a link with lower risk of endometrial and liver cancers. They have also looked at some other retrospective studies looking at people who are diagnosed with cancer or have a family history of cancer and are being screened for cancer in their coffee intake. And they think that coffee's phytocompounds are likely responsible for the lower risk of some form of cancers among people who drink coffee and have a risk or a family history of some of these cancers. Dark green leafy vegetables. Research findings show that carotenoids found in those dark green leafy vegetables act as an antioxidant and help boost the body's own antioxidant defenses. These help stop free radicals from damaging our DNA. And we know that any damage to the DNA can lead to cancer formation. Vitamin C is also very high in these foods and is a very strong power antioxidant. We know that the vitamin C does help inhibit the formation of carcinogens. Kale in particular offers all the benefits of the dark green leafy vegetables, but also the health protective compounds of those cruciferous vegetables like the broccoli and Brussels sprouts that we talked about earlier. Again, they're high in carotenoids, especially the beta and alpha carotene, and a compound called lutein, as well as flavonoids, including the quercetin. Possible protective actions of those compounds from green leafy vegetables is it inhibits the growth of certain types of breast cell cancers or breast cancer cells, skin cancer cells, lung cancer, as well as stomach cancer. And we know that especially the carotenoids, decrease free radical damage to the DNA. And we know that, again, that free radical damage is what can lead to cancer growth. Pulses, which is not something you take on your wrist. In this case, it's those dry beans, peas, lentils, or legumes. The beans are a top source of dietary fiber and contain numerous protective phytochemicals. We know that dietary fiber is a resistant starch, and also the phenolic compounds in the pulses all support the growth of health promoting gut bacteria, our gut microbiome. And as I'm going to talk about with a couple of these compounds later, your gut microbiome may be impacting how active or potent some of these compounds are in your body. This group of nutrients, the pulses, beans, lentils, nuts, seeds even include a list of compounds, beneficial compounds, the inositols, flavonoids, lignans, protease inhibitors, which is an area of a lot more recent research. And a lot of the immunotherapies are based off some of these protease inhibitors in foods and other drugs, saponins, sterols, and terpenoids. And we know that the possible protective actions of these compounds decrease the growth factor and chronic inflammation and increase self-destruction of cancer cells. You're going to start seeing that a lot of these have those same protective actions, and the increase of self-destruction of cancer cells and decreasing the growth factor and inflammation is kind of key along all of them, and key in that anti-cancer properties that they have. Soy is one of the few plant foods with all the amino acids that your body needs to make proteins. So if someone is eating a vegan diet and not eating any animal proteins, soy can be a great food option for getting all of those amino acids and getting the proteins your body needs. Soy is controversial, and I know I've talked about it in other presentations and videos that we have. And I know Kara spoke about it with hers and talking about some of the myths, fact versus fiction regarding nutrition and health and cancers. Soy does contain flavonoids, some isoflavones, phenolic acids, protein kinase inhibitors, and sphingolipids. We know that consuming a moderate amount of soy foods daily, 1 to 2 servings of whole soy foods, so soybeans, edamame, tempeh, is safe and does not increase breast cancer risk. A moderate amount of soy foods daily is safe for breast cancer survivors, whether estrogen receptor positive or negative. It is the case for both. And we know that it can improve overall survival rate. And we've seen that based on looking at cultures who eat a high amount of those soy foods and their cancer risk. Again, soy is one of those that can be controversial, and we've talked about it before, but it does have some compounds that have been shown to decrease cancer risk. Flaxseed, the seeds of the flax plant are packed with fiber, which reduces our risk of colon cancers, and phytochemicals called lignans, which are compounds that are well studied for their anti-cancer activity. Flaxseed's potential influence on breast, prostate, and other hormone-related cancers has led to a lot of interest in its role for prevention and survivorship of these cancers. And we do know that flaxseed, the compounds in flaxseed can actually block some of the hormones from their activity in the body, which for hormone-sensitive cancer is important. Lignans is the main compound in flaxseed, and we know that lignans slow tumor growth and the ability to spread both estrogen receptor positive and estrogen receptor negative breast cancers in animals, and it decreases the markers of inflammation, decreases the number and size of colon cancer tumors, and inhibits the growth and spread of prostate cancer in humans or in animals. So again, that blocking of hormonal ability is very important and a very strong anti-cancer protective effect in those hormone-sensitive cancer. In looking at garlic, onions, chives, leeks, scallions, and shallots, again, laboratory research shows that the allium compounds in these foods, these types of foods, offer strong anti-cancer activities. Now, I know I said at the beginning that these phytochemicals are the compounds that give plant foods, fruits, and vegetables their color. And you're looking at a picture of garlic that's white, but what makes that white is what gives it those anti-cancer properties. And when you think about garlic and onions and chives and scallions and shallots, they have a nice strong flavor to them. So that compound, while it might not be giving them a lot of color, it is giving them that strong flavor and aroma. This group of foods also has some flavonoids in them as well. And we know, again, that the allium compounds and the flavonoids both reduce carcinogens' ability to initiate cancer, reduce the growth of bladder, colon, prostate, and cancer, stomach cancer cells specifically, has been shown to slow the growth of breast, colon, esophageal, lung, and stomach cancers in animals, and is linked to a lower risk of colorectal cancer in humans. Citrus fruits have compounds beneficial, those phytochemicals that I'm going to talk about, but again, those are probably the strongest and biggest provider of vitamin C in most of our diets. Scientists are studying the combination of the vitamin C as the antioxidant and all those phytochemicals or phytocompounds in there, as looking at those for their potential protection against cancer. One thing that is unique about this group, oranges, is far more consumed in juice than as a whole fruit. We drink a lot more orange juice in the country or here in the US than we eat actual oranges. And of note, grapefruit and its juice can cause too much or too little of certain medications to reach cells in the body, either increasing or decreasing the effectiveness of that medication. So always talk to your physician or a dietitian or your pharmacist about whether or not you should be taking, when eating grapefruit or drinking grapefruit juice with your medications, because it can affect some medications, primarily heart medications, but we are finding there are some chemotherapy drugs that grapefruit can interact negatively with. So discuss that with your physician. The compounds primarily in citrus fruits are our carotenoids, the beta carotene, the lycopene, our flavonoids, and this one's easy to remember if you're thinking of lemons, lemanoids. But we know that these compounds decrease free radical damage to the DNA. And again, that free radical damage is what leads to cancers. It also decreases the growth and increased self-destruction of colon, mouth, skin, lung, breast, and stomach cancers, specifically in animals. So again, when we see those studies in animals, we know that it's something we can start looking into more in humans and human cells. Squash, particularly winter squash, as well as other orange fleshed vegetables like carrots, sweet potatoes, and fruits like apricots, cantaloupes, mangoes. There is growing research that supports including foods that are rich in beta carotene and other carotenoids as part of a healthy eating habit can reduce overall cancer risk. In population studies, higher blood levels of carotenoids are linked with a lower overall risk of cancer. So the more compounds you eat, the lower your risk of overall cancer. Again, the carotenoids, the alpha carotene, beta carotene, beta cryptoxanthin, lutein, and zeaxanthin. And we know that these, again, decrease free radical damage to the DNA, which leads to cancer, helps control cell growth, and stimulate self-destruction and decrease growth and metastasis of several types of cancers. So it stops the spread. Tea, and it doesn't have to be green tea, although we know that green tea has even stronger anti-inflammatory properties with its EGCG in there. But tea contains compounds, all teas, that show the potential to protect against cancer by supporting antioxidants and have a direct impact on cell growth. The caffeine and the flavonoids, particularly in teas, are what we know stimulate the enzymes that shut down carcinogens, decrease tumor growth, increase self-destruction of cells, and decrease free radical damage to the DNA that can lead to cancer. Tomatoes are actually pretty unique as a major source of lycopene, which is the red-colored phytochemical. It's the the compound that makes a tomato red. It is a type of carotenoid. There's been a lot of research on tomatoes and cancer, and they all focus on this particular carotenoid, the lycopene. It is biologically more active after it's been heated. So when you're eating a tomato, if you're eating a stewed tomato or tomato in your soup or a tomato sauce, the lycopene is more biologically active and going to have stronger impact and stronger activity in the human body than if you're eating a raw tomato. That being said, when you're eating a raw tomato, you have more vitamin C because heating it can denature some of the vitamin C, but we're talking about lycopene today. So you actually get more benefit from a heated tomato with regards to the lycopene activity. Lycopene has been shown to decrease free radical damage to the DNA that can lead to cancer cells. And again, also stimulates that self-destruction and cancer cell growth and metastasis of several types of cancer cells. And they have found this in human cells and human tissues and cancer cells. So it's not just in animals, but we know that in the human, it's a very strong anti-cancer compound. Walnuts, while we know that all nuts support a health promoting diet, they do differ in nutrients and the different plant compounds they provide. So when if you're talking about the antioxidants in nuts, we tend to know that Brazil nuts are one of the highest in selenium, which is the antioxidant. Well, walnuts are unique in several ways, but they are the strongest, the highest in some of these phytochemicals and phytocompounds that have that anti-cancer property. They've also been studied a lot more, but emerging research is showing that the potential for walnuts to contribute to a cancer preventative diet. And it's believed that it's because of all the compounds in them that are working together. Those phytochemicals, the antioxidants, the selenium, as well as some of the other fibers and vitamins and minerals and amino acids that might be in there. The compounds in walnuts, elegantins, flavonoids, phenolic acids, and phytosterols. And again, those compounds we know decrease inflammation and free radical damage. They inhibit growth of cancer cells and decrease the growth of breast and colon tumors in animals. Whole grains include the fiber-rich bran, the nutrient-packed germ, and the starchy endosperm of the whole grain itself. Because refined grains do not contain the bran and the germ, whole grains provide far more nutrients, far more fiber, and more of these health-promoting phytochemicals. They are doing some research in and exploring whether or not the intact whole grains such as brown rice, farro, bulgur, quinoa is one we all, I think, have heard of, whether or not those offer additional benefits beyond, some of the breads and cereals and pastas that are made from minimally processed whole grains. Whole grains contain flavonoids, the lignans that we saw in some of those beans and pulses, phenolic acids, phytic acids, more of those protease inhibitors, which are getting a lot of research on them about their role in cancers and other health diseases. And again, these compounds decrease growth of cancer cells and have a link, especially the whole grains, to the lower colorectal cancer risk. And we know that that's just because of that being such a high fiber food. That fiber speeds things through the GI tract. Things aren't sitting around in our colon, able to provide any oxidative stress or damage or promote inflammation. I want to give a shout out to some additional cancer fighting foods. Here, asparagus. It's rich in a family of flavonoid compounds that scientists are studying for several protective effects. This non-starchy vegetable is an excellent food to enjoy as part of a plant-forward diet to help lower your cancer risk. And the fact that it is considered a non-starchy vegetable makes it a great choice, especially for diabetics or anyone doing a low glycemic type index, because it doesn't have as much of an impact on your blood glucose levels. Asparagus has the flavonols, the inulins, saponins, and folate, which is one of the B vitamins that is important to health. And we know that asparagus also contains some amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins. So while it's not a protein source, it does provide us with some of the amino acids. Brussels sprouts are full of fiber and filled with nutrients with a lot of potential to stave off cancer as well. They bolster antioxidant and DNA defenses and promote healthy cell signaling. Just a little bit of trivia here. Brussels sprouts actually originated in the Mediterranean, but they got their name after they became popular in the capital area of Belgium, Brussels. So they did not start out being named Brussels sprouts. They were some other sprout, but because they were so popular in Brussels, Belgium, they got a new name, and they're now part of culinary traditions all over the world. They are full of carotenoids, dietary fiber. They have some vitamin C, again, which is an antioxidant, as well as folate, one of the B vitamins, flavonols, lignans, and glucosinolates. Cauliflower, again, despite me saying, eat more color, cauliflower provides an example of why you shouldn't overlook white colored foods. It's very nutrient dense. It is a cruciferous vegetable, just like the broccoli. And it has most of those same compounds. It doesn't have the beta carotene because it's not green. Beta carotene is one of the compounds that makes broccoli green. Cauliflower provides vitamin C and other protective compounds, glucosinolates and folate as well. Cherries, both sweet and tart cherries, are a good source of fiber and vitamin C. They have been shown to reduce oxidative stress and inflammation. And an interesting fact about cherries are they are among the foods highest in melatonin, which many of us know helps you sleep, but it also shows cancer preventative potential in some laboratory studies. So they're looking more at some of these foods that contain some melatonins and how that might also work with cancer prevention. They're also high in fiber, beta carotene, but the big latest thing with cherries is that melatonin, also their anti-inflammatory properties. Cranberries provide a modest amount of vitamin C, but the main source of potential for cancer prevention comes from some of the phenolic compounds, some of those phytochemicals in them. They include polyphenols, which are found in most berries, but they have a very unique type of polyphenol, proanthocyanidin, which has really only been identified in cranberries. Because many of these compounds are complex molecules broken down by the gut microbes, there is potential for some broad effects on the gut microbiota and inflammation. So individual differences in people's gut microbes could mean that people differ in cancer protection from cranberries. And that goes back to when I was talking about the gut microbiome, because some of these are interacting with our gut microbiome. Not everyone might get the same benefit from these, but it's something to watch, and you do get great nutrients from it. Grapes, research is investigating the effects of proanthocyanidin compounds in grape seeds and skins as well, that compound that's in cranberries. Laboratory studies are suggesting that they or compounds that the gut microbes produce from them can influence the expression of genes related to cancer development. So it's another area of new research. One of the nice things about nutrition is there are always new research. So it's a science, and it's active, and it's a living science, and it's changing all the time, and we're learning new things all the time. Grapes do contain resveratrol and a wide variety of phytocompounds that we know help the fruit play a role in the diet to reduce cancer risk. Resveratrol is probably the number one compound that most people know about, and it does have some very strong anti-cancer and cancer protective properties to it. So we've talked about some foods. What about getting these in supplements? Because you can go to the grocery store, the vitamin shop, the pharmacy, and you can see supplements of resveratrol, melatonin, quercetin. I've seen them all. But it really is recommended that you get the nutrients through food and not relying on supplements. It is possible to get too much of any one phytochemical or nutrient in general from supplements. When you get these phytochemicals and other compounds from a food, you're also getting the other healthy compounds from them, not just one or two nutrients or compounds, but you're also getting the fiber. You're getting all the vitamins and minerals that you get when you eat that food. And just as a reminder, in the United States, supplements are not well regulated. So you don't always know really what you are getting and what you are buying, and if what you are buying is what it says it is. We know there is no single food that can protect you from cancer by itself, but research shows that a diet filled with a variety of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, lentils, nuts, seeds, all those other plant foods can lower your risk for many cancers. So as kind of corny or cheesy as it sounds, dietitians say corny stuff all the time, eat a rainbow. The more variety and colorful your diet, the more of these compounds you are going to be getting. So make it a point to see how many colors you can eat every day. So thank you all for your time. I hope it wasn't too sciencey for you. Look for more from Ironwood on all of your social media. Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed this session. There will be a replay of this Lunch and Learn on the Ironwood YouTube and social media channels. For more information regarding our Supportive Care Services Department, classes, and events, email us at wellness@ironwoodcrc.com. Thank you for joining us today.